Right, Prince Andrew is now offering to live in Frogmore Cottage, Meghan and Harry's old digs, and leave his lodge. Andrew's downfall has reignited questions about royal privilege and accountability and what it means for the monarchy's standing here in New Zealand. So, how does one prince's scandal become a crisis for the crown? Well, Andrew Lownie is a royal biographer and joins us from the UK this morning. Andrew, great to have you on the program. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Andrew, well, what do you make? Well, first of all, these latest reports about, I'll offer to move house and perhaps Fergie will move house too. I mean, there's clearly an appetite for something to change in regards to Prince Andrew.
Yes, there's huge public opinion here that something needs to be done. It's the optics of someone who's a non-working royal living in a 30-room mansion isn't good. The problem is that he has an iron-clad lease. He can only go voluntarily, and he's holding out for a pretty good deal. And the deal he's offering is to move to 2 cottages, actually quite expensive houses, worth about £10 million between them, with probably about 12 bedrooms between them, nearby. And people are pretty appalled that his ex-wife, who he hasn't been married to for 30 years, is being included in this deal, and that we've got to kind of pay for her, because these are properties owned by the Crown Estates, which are in effect owned by the taxpayer. And as you say, this question is about royal privilege and accountability. And what's happened is that Andrew, by being so stubborn and refusing to give up his position at Royal Lodge, is opening up the press and the public to ask bigger questions about royal finances and the secretiveness in which they conduct their business. And it's something that I've campaigned against for about, I suppose, the last decade. And indeed, in my book entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, I kind of chart the way that this is operated and the very symbiotic relationship between the press and the royal family, which has prevented these stories from really being properly discussed.
Yes, your book paints quite a stark picture of the downfall. What do you think was the tipping point? You know, when did that ended his viability as a working royal?
Well, I think events have moved very quickly in the last few weeks. So, I mean, my book came out in August, and I think that emboldened the press to begin to question the narrative and the Duke of York's activities. And there's been a drip feed over the last 2 months of pretty critical coverage of him. But I think there were a couple of points that stand out. One is the funeral of the Duchess of Kent, in which he pretty shamelessly, he and his wife turned up with a police escort and tried to hijack the event. I think also the release of some material from the Epstein files, particularly showing how close their relationship was with Epstein, that it went on a lot longer than people realized. And then I think Virginia Giuffre's own book, which was published only a few days ago, I think really brings home in a very personal way the sleaziness of Andrew and the way he's behaved and the way he's been protected. And then we had last Friday the palace putting out a statement which they allowed Andrew to basically front, showing no sort of contrition, claiming that he'd a complete sort of false narrative of the fact that he'd stood down voluntarily and things. And I think people were so appalled by this sort of cover-up that they have now been calling for much wider changes in terms of transparency about the royals. And so I think this is the biggest crisis they've had since the abdication in 1936.
Even more so than Princess Diana's death and the family's reaction to that.
Yes, I mean the family did react to public opinion there quite quickly, but that was a situation about mourning a beloved sort of member of the royal family. This is about corruption by a senior royal, which was protected by the monarchy itself, and that's a much more important story.
Andrew,
and unless they can cut themselves loose from Andrew, I think he's going to bring them down.
Can they not do that? Is there something in law? You mentioned, the Royal Lodge where he's staying, 30 bedrooms, he's one person. Can the king not say, get out, or by law, because of his royal patronage, does he have a right to be there?
Well, he has an ironclad lease, as anyone has, and so they can't get rid of him. They can remove his titles. At the moment, they're only in abeyance, and they can do that through letters patent. They can do that through parliamentary time. So there are lots of things they can do to basically shame him. But in terms of getting him out of Royal Lodge, that has to be voluntary. And at the moment, I mean, he's holding out for a better deal.
What do you think we Kiwis should think of all this, Andrew? We sort of look on with horror and slight fascination at the whole thing, but there's not a huge, in my sense of it, not a huge groundswell well, I mean, no one thinks it's great, but there's not a huge outpouring of anger or angst about our part in the monarchy. What is your sense of how we should feel about it, whether it's a massive deal?
Well, I think it does show the vulnerabilities and that people are questioning the monarchy. I mean, I speak as a monarchist myself, but as someone who feels that, no one is above the law. And clearly, Andrew, in terms of his sexual and financial misdemeanors, has brought a lot of shame on the royal family and has undermined their credibility and the good works that many of them do. And I think probably people in New Zealand, and I count among them my sister who lives there, will probably be a little worried about this.
Really appreciate your analysis. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Andrew Lownie, who's the royal biographer, and his book, as he mentioned, entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. It's a 4-year research project, very well written. You can pick it up at all good bookstores.